Good morning, lovely friends, or afternoon or evening, wherever you are. How are you all today? I hope you're well. I'm grand, thank you. I'm a little dishevelled and tired. I'll tell you why in a minute. But generally speaking, yes, very well, thank you. My spots have all gone. I still feel a little bit, but I think that's now psychological, and definitely I've definitely been feeling tired. Never mind because of today's tiredness specificity. I'll come on to that in a second. But I feel, by the way, we're just going to have a little chat today. I've got a few things I want to talk about and share. Yeah, I'm feeling so much better today than I did sort of 3 weeks ago, middle of July. Things were really getting on top of me, mounting up, as in the things that needed my attention. So in the last 2 weeks, well, in these 3 weeks, that first week I was down at Auntie Teapot's, as I mentioned in a previous video, came home because I was ill, and I've had pretty much 2 weeks at home quarantining. I've had 2 quick dashes to the garden, as you'll have seen by now, but I haven't really spent any time there doing any gardening. Oh, there's so much to do. Oh my goodness. So yeah, these last couple of weeks, I've been really tired. But what's interesting is because I haven't been able to go to the garden because I didn't want to mix with people, just being forced to be at home. Even though I've been going much more slowly than usual, I've got so much done, and it's such a relief. Because you remember when I think it was about the middle of July, yeah, I think it was around the 16th, and I'd even mentioned it on Facebook to say, listen, I'm not going to be answering messages, emails, comments, I haven't got time, I've got a really full plate. And I still have, to some degree, but here I am now on, I think it's either the 7th or the 8th of August. We're at the end of the first week of August, and I think, I don't want to jinx myself, but I think I've caught up with everything that I was aiming to get done by the end of July. And I think that's brilliant. I think that's amazing, considering how, under the weather I have felt. But I was really motivated as well. I don't really like sitting still. I absolutely hate wasting time. Hate it. I mentioned in that some previous video, how, yeah, if I was on a Greek island, I'd be more than happy to waste time. But when I'm at home, indoors, and all around me, I can see piles of jobs that need attending to. Every time I turn on the computer, I'm reminded of all the jobs I need to attend to. Stacks of paperwork that I know that I need. Anyway, you get the idea. So, yeah, I've just been ploughing through it. Just keep going, Vivi. This is amazing, I even managed to do a bit of cleaning yesterday. I never clean. I know, life's too short. But, yeah, so it never fails to amaze me, the difference it can make to me, and I'm sure so many of you will agree, but for yourselves, it never fails to amaze me, the difference it can make to get those things done that sort of, I'm not being very articulate this morning because it was a very late night last night. I've had 3 hours of sleep. Yeah, just that feeling of weight being lifted. It's all up here, but I can almost feel it viscerally. Yeah. I can't speak. Oh, this doesn't bode very well, does it, for a chatty video if I can't speak? There were so many different spokes on this wheel that I needed to sort, and the wheel was spinning faster and faster and faster, and I couldn't focus on one spoke at a time. Oh, nice analogy, Vivi. So yeah, it's, you know, the last 2 weeks, not ideal, but actually, you know, kind of serendipitous. Did fate step in? This enforced time of, you know, being made to slow down, and it gave me the time to give attention to those things. I couldn't go to the garden, so it's like, well, you know, normally at this time of year, I'd probably go to the garden 3 or 4 times a week. And then by the time I get home from the garden, I'm feeling really pooped and achy and painful, so I don't want to do anything else with the rest of that day. So actually, you know, maybe it's all been a really good thing. My family and friends have all joked, excuse me, let me have a little slurp. My family and friends have all joked that, it's a bit of a coincidence that you have to quarantine for 2 weeks when the Olympics are on. Trust me, I genuinely did have a very contagious disease which kept me at home. But yeah, and I was thinking about this as well. I think if the Olympics hadn't been on and I'd had this 2 weeks at home, I think I would have been considerably more miserable than I was. So yes, this huge feeling of lightness. Now, it's not like I've got to today and gone, oh, that's it, everything's done, I can relax a bit. No, I've got a whole lot of stuff coming and ahead of me. So I'm still massively having to juggle my time. Still really, really busy. And still I have things which are taking me away from, keeping me away from the things I'd rather be doing. But it all looks a bit more manageable now. Whew. So, because I've been such a good girl, behaving at home and getting things done and not being tempted to go to the garden and accidentally run into people and pass the pox on, because there's quite a lot of people down there with really little kids too and newborn babies and all that. So because I've been a good girl, I decided it was time for a treat. Now, I don't know about you and how you give yourself a treat. You know, I know people that for a treat they'll say, oh, let's go to Paris for the weekend, or we'll go out for a slap-up meal, or we'll go to the theatre, buy a new handbag, buy a piece of jewellery, go to the hairdressers and you know, get your nails done or whatever it is. You know, these kind of splash the cash kind of treats. Well, obviously that's not the kind of treat I do, being a frugal lass. It's not really the kind of treat I've ever done. Treats to me are considerably more humble, if you like. You know, a gorgeous bar of chocolate or a really nice bottle of wine. I don't mean nice as in expensive, but just a bottle of wine, whatever it is. And I think probably many of you are similar. I know a lot of you are here because you're frugal too. A treat can be as simple as that, a bar of chocolate, a bottle of wine. I was thinking about this morning about my treats actually in general. Yeah, I've got kind of 3 favourite treats and none of them cost money. They all cost time, and that is why they're a treat to me, because time is generally so busy and precious that to take a chunk of time off, that is a real treat. So for me, one of my best treats is, you know, especially say in the autumn, as the afternoons are getting a bit darker and maybe it's a really wild, windy, lashing rain day and I can hear it, but I'm indoors all snug and cosy. I've maybe even got a blanket on me and I curl up on the sofa and read for an hour or 2. That is, oh, I can almost feel that. Yeah, just thinking about it, I can feel it. That's a huge treat. Another treat for me is a really long bath. especially if it's a kind of a daytime bath, because bathing in the daytime, that's quite naughty, isn't it? It's quite a luxury. You know, we normally think of bathing either first thing in the morning, get up, have a shower, or as I normally do, last thing in the evening, bath, bed. But actually, even for my evening bath, it's usually quite a quick affair because I just want to get clean and get to bed. So a daytime bath with a book, oh my goodness, this would be the ultimate, wouldn't it? But this would cost. A daytime bath with a book, a bottle of bubbly and a bar of chocolate. Oh, you get the picture, don't you? So yeah, I think, and my final treat is just having time to sit in the garden, not do anything, and not be, you know, to have the garden at a stage that I'm happy with it. So it's had a tidy, everything's tied in, everything's harvested that needs to be, and now I can just sit for an hour and just sit and be in the garden. Oh, so the treat that I've just had, well, can you hear the rain? It's chucking down again today, hence I've got the lights on. It's just gone 11 in the morning. So my treat wasn't in the garden because it's been chucking down. It wasn't time off to read a book. It wasn't a long, luxurious daytime bath with a bottle of bubbles or not bubbles. My treat was a really, 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 really late night. My treat was to go to bed at 4:30 this morning. My treat was to stay up pretty much all night to watch the last day of the Olympics. Oh, it was an absolute joy. Now listen, you know, I know not all of you are into sport, that's fine, but I think you can appreciate for me what a massive deal that is, to be able to just, I worked really hard all day yesterday trying to get things done, tying up loose ends, clear my desk. I know what I've got set up for today, quite a bit on today. So all the things I'm going to do today, everything's laid out, ready for me to just get stuck straight into. So it was about 10 o'clock last night. I said, right, that's it. I'm not doing any work. I'm not gonna try and do something with my hands whilst I'm enjoying the Olympics. I am just going to sit back and lap it up. So it started about 10:30 UK time in the evening with the men's marathon. Oh, I'm so naughty because the night before I'd watched the women's marathon. Well, actually with the women's I wasn't really watching, I was listening, I was still working. Oh my goodness, till about 1 in the morning. But honestly, I've been so motivated and determined to just get all this stuff off my plate because, you know, get it out of here as well. Can you feel the lightness? Yeah, so it started with the men's marathon. Brilliant. Kipchoge was absolutely amazing. And then as the night went on, it was all the track cycling in the velodrome. So exciting. Disappointments in the women's omnium for our Laura. But, sorry, I don't want to go into detail with the actual sport. But, yeah, anyway, the point is, that was my treat. That was my absolute, total indulgence. And I didn't have a single second, not a flicker of feeling guilty for it. Most of the time, if I was to try to do something like that, I'd feel guilty, thinking I should be doing something else. But I didn't last night. Loved every single second of it. I'm so grateful that the fates allowed that this should happen at this moment, that having been gutted to not have any sport last year, to have the Olympics again, and at a time when I had to be home for 2 weeks. I honestly didn't plan it. Honest, Girl Guide's honour. Anyway, so what was interesting last night, I could feel myself grinning from ear to ear at times. It sort of dawned on me about 2 or 3 weeks ago, Rebecca, hello Rebecca, had asked me, I think it was shortly after there'd been a load of tennis on, she said, what was my favourite sport? Is it tennis? What sports do I like outside of tennis? And I would have no hesitation in saying athletics, we say athletics in the UK, what you call track and field in the States, athletics, gymnastics, swimming and cycling, whether it's road or track. Love all of them. And that's what's so great about the Olympics is we get all of them all together. How to choose between the ones I love. And then I'd been thinking, if I could only ever watch one sport for the rest of my life, I was thinking, it'd probably be tennis. I realised in the last few days, no, it wouldn't. It really it came home to roost in the last couple of days in particular. Oh, one of the other sports, triathlon. But of course I'd like triathlon, wouldn't I? Because it's running, swimming, cycling. And I think they probably are my top 3 sports. I think tennis comes in joint fourth with gymnastics. If I could only ever watch one sport ever again for the rest of my life, it'd be running. Middle and long distance. Love it. Just love it. And what I love about watching the marathon is, because it's such a long event, it's 2 hours plus. Well, unless you're Kipchoge and you're trying to break the 2-hour barrier. But, it's 2 hours plus. So the commentators have got loads of time for chatting. And I love it because they always end up talking about, the history of the marathon. I don't mean the history as in, Pheidippides running in ancient classical Greece. I mean, in terms of the marathons at the Olympics, and invariably they start reminiscing about all their favourite middle and long distance runners. And I was thinking this last night watching it. The first Olympics I really remember was 1980, the Moscow Olympics. I did watch a little bit of the 76 in Munich. I was a little kid in 76, but I remember being allowed to, it wouldn't have been staying up late or anything like that. Actually, it might have been because Munich's an hour ahead of us, and it might have been an evening session, I'm not sure, but I was allowed to watch the gymnastics because I was completely besotted with Nadia Comaneci. And in 1972, I don't even know where the Olympics were in 72. Oh, I've lost my Olympic history for a minute, never mind. I was 4, just going on 5, and at that stage in my life I was deeply in love with Olga Korbut. Had Olga Korbut pictures all over my bedroom. It's a tiny, tiny little thing. I loved her. And it's when I first started doing gymnastics myself. But I had to stop when I was about 9, 10. I was getting too tall. Never would have worked. Anyway, sorry, that was a bit of a digression. I first remember the Olympics in the sort of the 80 and 84, and of course Seb Coe, Steve Ovett, and then later on Steve Cram, Peter Elliott, all those great names of our middle distance running. And then, then it all kind of moved on, and we got the Moroccans. Were they both Moroccan? Saïd Ouita, El Garage, not, I sound like I'm saying garage, El Garouge. Obviously in more recent years, the Kenyans and the Ethiopians have been whooping everybody's backsides. And the Ingebrigtsens, well done Norway, what a family. So yeah, I love watching the marathon because they talk about all this stuff, and the reason I was referencing the 80s is, of course, as a kid watching these races, they'd be talking about the great runners from the 50s and 60s. I had no idea who they were talking about. But now here I am in my 50s, and when the commentators are chatting about the Olympics 20 years ago or 30 years ago, I remember it. I remember who they're talking about. Great, great memories. Oh, loved it. You can tell it was a treat for me, can't you? Absolutely brilliant. So yeah, if there was only ever one sport that I could watch again in my whole life, it would definitely be middle and long distance running. Whilst I was watching, I suddenly remembered a book on my shelf, I want to share a couple more books with you at the end, gift books. But I've had this on my shelf for ages, and I know I want to read it. That's why I bought it. I probably bought it, I don't know when it was published. Hang on, let me check. I probably bought this book 12, 13 years ago when it first came out. First published 2009. There we go, 12 years ago. Because I knew I would get round to reading it. I knew I wanted to read it at some point. But quite often with my books, I'm sure I've talked about this before, and I'm sure you all get this as well for yourselves with your reading. You have to be in a certain frame of mind or a certain mood. Something takes you there and you go, oh, now that is the perfect book to read right now. Or, for instance, a couple of books for my birthday, can't wait to read them, but now is not the right time. I'm just not in the mood for that kind of book at this moment. But last night I remembered this book, so I pulled it off the shelf. It's going on my nightstand. Do any of you know Haruki Murakami? Oh, and how perfect! I didn't even think of this. It's Japanese. So some of you may know him for the Wind-Up Bird Chronicles. So this is his book, What I Talk About When I Talk About Running. So he's famously quite reclusive character. Is there a bit I can read to you from the back? It says it's in 1982, having sold his jazz bar to devote himself to writing, Murakami began running to keep fit. I mean, running and marathon running in Japan is huge. Just going back to 1984, that was the first Olympics where women were allowed to run the marathon. I mean, can you believe it? That's not that long ago. It's not that long ago that women were considered far too delicate to run. Can't run 26 miles, you'll hurt yourself, you may kill yourself. I mean, how could they possibly think that? When you think of how many hours women can be in labour for and then push out a human being, I think if women can do that, they can run a marathon. Well, we know they can. Digressing. So he starts running to keep fit. Oh, the reason I was just talking about the 80s is, if you go back through the history of the Olympic marathons, you'll see a lot of Japanese medals in there. So he starts running to keep fit. And then a year later, he'd completed a solo course from Athens to Marathon, the original marathon course. And now, after dozens of such races, he reflects upon the influence the sport has had on his life and writing. Equal parts travelogue, training log, reminiscence, So what I think is kind of interesting about this, I can't wait to read it. If it carries on raining, I might even have a little read this afternoon, is, I know I bang on about sport, and you know that I love it, kind of. I don't even need to say that now, do I? But I think for some people, sport is such an alien concept. Especially, I have this a lot with my artistic and creative friends. Sport is not on their radar at all. They can't stand it, or they just don't get it. And through the years, I've had friends think it's really odd that I should have this background of being a creative artist, being an actor, but screaming at a screen, watching a football match or watching people running around a track. They just can't reconcile it. So I think it'd be really interesting to read this, because here is this, major literary figure into his sport. It also made me think about Bertolt Brecht, the 1930s, 40s German expressionist theatre practitioner, who wrote an essay called, was it called Sport is Theatre or Sport as Theatre? So he could see the correlation between theatre and sport and writing. I can't wait. So I'll let you know how that goes. I'll get stuck into that. Of course, this has brought back all my memories of running as well. I ran when I was younger, then I stopped for ages, and then it was when I got my dog in 99. So how old was I? It's 32. And I'd lived in a different area at that time. There were lots of open spaces, really big open spaces, rivers, streams, up, down terrain. So I'd take the dog out every day, twice a day minimum. And a friend of mine said, well, why didn't you... And at this stage, I've always walk everywhere. I used to walk to work. So I'd take the train into London, get out at this train station in London, and then from there, walk to where I would work. It would take half an hour, I speed walk. So a friend of mine said, why don't you just up the ante and start running? Now you're taking the dog out twice a day, why don't you just start running around the park with her? I thought, yeah, okay, why not? And actually, I think because I'd continued to be quite a physical person, because I'd continued to walk, and I've always walked fast, I actually got back into my running really quite quickly. You know, you have these programs of Couch to 5K, and it's sort of like an 8 or 12 week program, and on day one, you jog for a minute, walk for a minute, jog for a minute, walk for a minute, you know, that kind of thing. And day 3, you do, and sort of by the middle of it, you sort of jog for 4 minutes, walk for 2 minutes. Well, I found, I mean, literally within a couple of weeks, I was jogging for 20 minutes really quite comfortably. More than that, I was really, really loving it again. Really loving it. I think it's a combination of being outside, being in lovely open spaces, that companionship of just me and my dog out there in the early morning, quite often not seeing other people, making it fun, you know, daring myself to jump over a little stream, and, you know, a few days later going a bit further up the stream where it's a bit wider, daring myself to try and jump further over it. And that thing of that sort of just that metronomic kind of the steadiness of the footfall. Yeah, it's almost hypnotic. And I think that kind of, that hypnotic footfall, it sort of helps all sorts of thoughts disappear, and one becomes really, really, really in the moment. Yeah, just the sound of my breath, my footfall, my dog. Delicious, delicious. I loved it. So yeah, really, really quickly, I'd say within a couple of months, I was just completely back into running. It was great. So I was loving it so much, and I was just telling everybody about it. I was obviously getting a lot of endorphins from it, excuse me. I was obviously having that endorphin thing. Because, you know, I'd run in the morning and it would set me up great for the day. So I'd go out every morning, run a really slow 5K with the dog, if not a little bit further, come home, quickly shower, go to work, then I'd have my speed walk to work. So by the time I'd get to work in the morning, I would have already had an hour of exercise. So I'd be like, fresh, buzzing, whoa, yeah, lively. Repeat that in the evening. So in the evenings, I used to have a really, really, really slow run. And quite often in the evenings, because I do my speed walk home from work, get home, take the dog out. And sometimes it wouldn't even be a proper run. I'd just trot a bit, and then I think, actually, no, I'm just going to stand and stare for a while. It was lovely. So because I was talking about it to everyone, oh, I've just rediscovered the joy of running. I'm loving it. A friend of mine said, you should start doing some races. And I was like, no, I'm not interested. I don't want to compete. I'm not good enough to compete. I'm just really loving it for myself. And she said, well, I want to, just to sort of, as a challenge, to challenge ourselves. And at the time, so like I said, this is going back to 2009. No, sorry, that's the book. I'm talking 1999. Is that when I'm talking? Yeah, it's 1999. This is before the days of we see a load of 5K fun runs advertised these days, which you get sponsored, you do it for charity. The big one, of course, is the one that's done for cancer research, when everyone's dressed in pink. Challenge yourself to do a 5K, either walk, run, it doesn't matter, get some sponsorship, get out there, enjoy yourself and raise some money. So anyway, back to the late 90s, early noughties, those races weren't happening, sort of fun runs. Of course, we had the London Marathon and the Great North Run, but to find a 5K or a 10K, they were few and far between. But here was the great thing. The last Friday of the month, every month, in Hyde Park, they had an open to all 5K. And of course, it was just up the road from where I worked. If I remember correctly, I think it was always at 12:30, I think. So it was perfect. I could do it in my lunch break. So as a warm-up, so I'd have my lunch break at work, get changed into my running gear, run to Hyde Park as a warm-up, get to the start line, nice and warmed up, go and do my 5K, run back to work as a cool down, have a wash, get changed, go back to work. Anyway, so my friend challenged me, or us, we said we'd do it together. She said, come on, let's do a 5K, let's test ourselves. Really up for it. And that first one, I remember I was so nervous, it's crazy. And we're split into two lots in the park. The elite runners and the not elite runners. So anyone who thinks they're going to do, for women it's sub 20, for the men it's sub 15, I think, if I remember correctly. Then the next category is, I think it's sub 30 women, sub 25 men. And then there's a sub 40, and if you can't run it in less than 40, you don't get entry. You have to be able to, it's not a fun run. I mean, it was fun, but it's, you know what I mean. So we put ourselves into the 30 minutes and less category, because that's what we said to ourselves. If we can just run it in under 30 minutes, we'll be really pleased with ourselves. So we had our little trot round Hyde Park. We did it in 27 minutes and 14 seconds. I can still remember the time. 27 minutes 14. Finished the little race. I was absolutely chuffed. I was chuffed. I wasn't, I was under 30 minutes and I didn't come last. That was my other thing. I did not want to come last. Anyway, so as the subsequent days went past, I was thinking, 27 minutes, that's rubbish. This is something else I've talked about in the past as well, about I'm not competitive. You do you, I do me. I'm just really not competitive, except with me. And I'm really hard on myself. Anyway, so yeah, over the next few days, I was like, 27 minutes, that is rubbish. Next time, I want it to be under 25. So a month later, went back, ran it. And I can't remember the exact time, but it wasn't under 25. It was something like 25 and 40 seconds. I was like, oh, that maddened me. I wasn't, though, excuse me, on a daily basis. I wasn't training. I was still just plopping around the countryside with my dog. I say countryside, it was almost countryside. It's right on the edge of London. Anyway, yeah, so needless to say, because I am competitive with myself, I did get my time down, and eventually I got my time down to about 22 minutes and, around the 20-second mark. I never got it under 22 minutes, though. But, I think, on reflection, I think that was pretty darned good for, by then, 30-something, 31, 32 I was at the time then. Anyway, the point is, I loved it. I just loved it. I loved occasionally, I didn't do that race every month. Not at all. Just dip in and out. Sometimes, I do it like maybe once every 3 or 4 months, once in 6 months, once in a year. it wasn't about that. That was a little challenge. We'd set ourselves and we'd done it, and that was great. For me, it was purely about that time outside, just me and my dog. And frankly, it was a meditation. Beautiful. It's one of the things, I don't want to get upset, it's one of the things that upsets me about, you know, this body letting me down. I actually dream. I have lots of dreams in which I'm running. And I have, in the last couple of years, I've actually woken up crying. Oh, silly girl. I've woken up crying because I've woken up and remembered, oh, I can't run anymore. Okay, let's not be heavy. So yeah, it's a shame. It's a shame not to be able to do it anymore. I do miss it when I think about that, and when I remember how it felt. That makes me miss it more than the actual going out and doing it. The feeling, that sort of quiet, gentle euphoria. Oh, can't beat it. Anyway, gosh, well, I didn't mean to talk about running quite so much, but yeah, so that was my treat last night. 3 hours sleep later. I've got stuff to do today. I will get on with things, but I'm definitely going to go to bed a bit earlier tonight because I'm still a bit tired from, you know, the old poxy thing anyway. But let me just quickly tell you about another couple of books which I'm looking forward to getting into. The other thing, just to say very quickly, it strikes me that I love long distance running. That's my thing. Middle distance, track running, you know, 800 it's too short, but 1500, yeah, start to like it, and it's exciting, isn't it, track running? But I'm definitely all about the, you know, the long distance marathon, the Ironman events, Marathon des Sables, this kind, you know, the endurance events, triathlon. Oh my goodness, such hard work. And it occurs to me, you know, when you look at my reading on the shelves, so much of it is about endurance, isn't it? Whether it's climbing a mountain, crossing a polar ice cap, living off-grid in the middle of nowhere through the worst winter ever. Yeah, it's definitely, endurance is my thing. So I am, you know what, I'm thinking about cancelling the rest of today so I can read my Haruki Murakami. I've got to say, interestingly, just very quickly, I'm so happy and excited today just because I know what I've managed to achieve in the last 2 weeks. Honestly, I've worked my backside off to do it. Maybe my treat should continue. Wind Up Bird Chronicles. What are the other ones of his that you may know? I'm trying to... After Dark. Which? Norwegian Wood. Wild Sheep Chase. Now, I can't remember which... I've only read one of his works of fiction. I can't remember what it was. The writing style I thought was just exquisite. So beautiful. But I hated the narrative. It's really not a nice narrative to read as a woman. Hated it. It kind of put me off him a bit. But then it's like, hang on a minute, but the writing is gorgeous. So I think this is going to be an absolute beautiful indulgence for me. Can't wait. So back to the books. Mandy, thank you Mandy, very kindly gave me this book. Oh, let's get it there. The Living Mountain, Nan Shepherd. So this is, it says it's a masterpiece of nature writing. Nan Shepherd describes her journeys into the Cairngorm Mountains of Scotland. She encounters a world that can be breathtakingly beautiful at times and shockingly harsh at others. Well, that's obviously right up my street, isn't it? Thank you, Mandy. And there's a little card inside, and she said, I can't believe you haven't read this. So, look, and it's only a little teeny diddy book. Ooh, flashy gold spine. So, I love that. That might be like an afternoon read on a rainy day. And the other book that came, it didn't have a gift note with it, but I know now who it's come from. It's come from my lovely friend, Jay. Remember I was mentioning her the other day? And the remarkable, incredibly giving things she has recently done. Yeah, it's all gone well. You are a true star, J. Well, she messaged me to say, have you had a book by any chance? I was like, oh, it's from you. So I pulled it out of the bag, and I knew it was a book because it had a Waterstones label on it. That's one of our main bookshops here. And, oh, well, I could feel. So I was pulling it out of the bag, like I had it upside down, and I could see straight away, Gathering Moss, A Natural and Cultural History of Mosses. I was thinking, crikey, that's a bit niche, but I quite like niche. But then as I pulled it out, I literally went, oh, oh, squeal of joy. It's by Robin Wall Kimmerer. Now, you've heard me talk about her on numerous occasions because of this book, Braiding Sweet Grass. There are books, I should say also thank you Sarah who originally sent this. This has got to be about 2 or 3 years ago now. The fact that it's on my shelf tells you a lot. These days, after I've read a book, I rarely keep it, I pass it on. I haven't got the space. This one is not going anywhere. I dip into it from time to time. Every now and again, a book comes along that takes your breath away for whatever reason, that moves you, that touches your soul so deeply. It's almost unbelievable. This was that for me. There were times with the writing, I felt like she'd invaded my own brain and my own heart. She was writing from my heart. Remarkable. So, I won't put it back on the shelf for now. So the minute I saw that it was Robin Wall Kimmerer, I thought, oh, fantastic. Fantastic. What I loved about Braiding Sweet Grass is she's a native North American, and she has that kind of the story of the plants and their uses, etc. That's been passed down through generations and generations and generations, and she has that spiritual connection with the plants and the earth. But she's also a trained botanist, so she's got that science head, and I love that meeting point of those two things, that sort of science and spiritual. I think it's quite a hard thing to do, or, you know, especially to convey in a book. She does it magnificently. So I can't wait to read a book all about moss. But again, look, it's a little skinny one. So I think, oh, there's pictures of mosses, like that sort of line drawings. So I think, again, this is going to be one of those for rainy afternoon, curl up on the couch. I think sorry, I'm just going to say very quickly as well, and then I'm going to wrap up. I realise I've been yakking for ages. Ricky, thank you so much. I could smell it even before I opened the packet for some more. I was going to say butter. It's not butter, it's soap. But hasn't that been beautifully moulded? Can you see? Look at that. Oh, I don't know if that'll pick up. It's just so neat. Neat bar. It's rose, geranium and juniper. It's gorgeous. And I also had from Virginia, thank you note, but also she sent me some pages from one of her magazines. Are you in Canada or America, Virginia? I can't remember suddenly, my brain's gone blank. I think you're in America. Anyway, pages from magazine, it's all veggie dishes. I think they might even be vegan. Mushroom kidney bean burgers, falafel fattoush, I don't know what that is. Cuban style orange scented black beans. There's a cassoulet there. And frigiladas with sweet potatoes and caramel. Oh, anyway, thank you. I had a quick look through Peruvian beans. Oh, taku is Peruvian beans and rice. Had a quick squiz through Virginia, and I was like, yeah, want, like, gonna make. So, brilliant, thank you. That was really kind and thoughtful. I am treated so magnificently by you all. It's fabulous. So just to wrap up, I think The other thing about this last 2 weeks that I've had a chance to sort of reflect on a little bit, because there have been quiet moments in the day when the Snow Olympics on, and and I've quietly been at my desk. I've had my desk normally I have my desk in the kitchen. I've had everything in the living room, and just, I can do a bit of work, have a little bit of a sit on the sofa, do a bit of work, that sort of thing. So there have been quite a few quiet times, and, we're thinking about the running and missing that joy in my life, but thinking about the joy of quiet and that sort of meditative, being in the moment sort of thing. And it's made me realise that I need, not want, that's for you, Paul, I need to make time to have time for that. I know I'm always banging on about I don't have any time, but you know what? I have to make time for it. Otherwise, I am going to lose touch with the whole point of life, It's just going to become a constant battle to get through every day and to get through all the stuff. So it's something I'm going to reflect on more and think about how to incorporate that, whether it's whether it's being strict about having a day off, and on that day off saying, this is a day off. It's not a day off to catch up with cleaning or anything like that. This is a day off, or even an afternoon off, to say this is your time for reading. This is your time for sitting in the park or in the garden. Yeah. It's good, isn't it, what can come out of a bit of quarantine? Some really positive thoughts. There have been other thoughts as well about, along that line of thinking to myself, well, it's all very well and good, Vivi, saying you must make time to have time off, or you must take time to be more, to have quiet time. Thinking, where will that come? So I've also done a bit of hard thinking. It doesn't affect any of you or my work in terms of, say, YouTube or saying or whatever, but I've had a hard look at where some of my time goes, and I've come up with a couple of decisions which have been a little bit tricky to make, but the decisions are made, not going back on them, of letting go of some stuff. I don't mean physical stuff, letting go of some things that have been stealing my time. So yeah, that's all good as well. It's all very positive. Let go of a little bit of stuff in order to get a little bit of me back, which sounds incredibly selfish and narcissistic. It's not. It's about looking after this and making space for quiet joy. I have plenty of loud joy in my life, lots and lots and lots of loud joy, but I don't have quiet joy, and I think I need that for a bit of balance. So there we go. Oh my goodness. Well, I knew I was going to talk about this kind of stuff today, but I didn't realise. It's funny, isn't it? Sometimes I think once you start to say these things out loud, normally it would be with a friend sitting right next to you, that you realise, wow, yeah, that is a really important part of my life. I hadn't realised. I've pushed it so far back, I hadn't realised. Now I do. Now I'll look after that little bit. I may not be able to run myself anymore, but I will make sure that I make time to enjoy other people, either talking about it or doing it. Look at the time. All right, lovelies. I'll see you again really soon, I hope. The weather's been rubbish, so I still haven't done the garden tour. It'll be the end of August at this rate. I'll get it done soon. Hopefully a couple of dry days in the coming weeks. And if we get that, I'll get back out into the garden and we can all go and enjoy some fresh air together. So until then, please look after yourselves, everyone. Look after your running knees and your running feet if you're still at it. If you're not, dream it instead. Cheerio, everyone.